I want that Svelte cake.
Oh,
That's
there's
a
a
good
Svelte
intro.
cake.
You know,
Is this code for
the
something?
one that they posted in Discord the other day, it's like the Svelte logo, and it looks like it's chocolate on the inside. It looks so
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Where can I get myself one of those?
I
Should I
know,
get one
right?
for Svelte Summit?
Yeah, you should get a
Yes.
few.
Like a huge Svelte cake?
Yes,
get
it just needs to
1
lay
by 1
across a
meter.
table. Yes.
Yeah.
Just get each letter.
Yeah.
Each letter is a cake.
Oh, there
and
you
serve
go.
and you serve one letter at a different time of the day, and yeah,
Yeah.
Why not? Why not?
That's great.
All right. So, if you're not aware of what podcast you're listening to, it's Felt Radio. We're back once again. This episode, we're going to talk about stores, custom stores, regular stores. It's a stores galore episode. And
All
as
the
usual, I
stores.
have my co-hosts with me, Brittney, Antony, and Shawn. Hello.
Hi,
Hey.
everyone.
Hello.
We're so energetic today.
Yeah. It's very
couple
hot
of us-
outside.
A couple of maybe most of us are looking pretty tired today.
Yeah. I am tired. I've been working all day, and then I've prepared I'm preparing a presentation for the meetup that I'm running tonight. It's about Svelte Cubed.
Oh,
So it's my first time playing around with Svelte Cubed.
are you
which is,
showing that on the
it's nice.
YouTube channel too?
I don't think it'll be recorded, unfortunately.
Oh,
But maybe we can do a Svelte Sirens stream or something with that.
yes, that would be
I can do
incredible.
the presentation on just for you on the YouTube channel. Yeah.
That would be great.
So, what have you guys been up to?
Work, and more work.
Oh, it's like last
same.
week.
Yeah, a
What?
lot. Well,
Who would have thought?
This week it kind of became even worse because I was doing sort of releases that took so long to release because they were quite a lot of database migrations and stuff that I had to do them late at night, which is not something I've done for a very long time. I do believe in continuous delivery and releasing whenever and ever, but these were big enough that we needed to have sort of not quite downtime, but certainly things would be very, very wonky for a while. So had to release them at night, and of course it was me staying up and doing them. So it really has impacted my ability to do anything else during the day.
Yeah, that makes sense. Did you run into any issues, or did you?
No, it was very smooth actually. Very smooth. It's one of the benefits of keeping QA identical to production is that I was confident it would all work and it went really well. There was one weird, I say an issue. It was just a weird an oddity, and it was that migrating my production database, which has the same data as the QA database, it's just the QA database has all the personal information removed. It took longer. It was significantly slower. And they're both the same. They're on the same kind of cluster. Not sure why that happened. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll never know.
The mysteries of computer science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's upsetting to learn that my production database is slower than my QA database, that's for sure.
Yeah, it should probably be the other way around, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, Brittney, what have you been up to?
Yeah, just been super busy. I feel like getting my footing at work, and after all the streams last week, I had 6 streams or podcasts last week. So after that week, I'm just now kind of trying to find like, where do I fit in at Netlify? Like what do I have to do? What are my responsibilities? So getting some blog posts and things written this week and slowing down a little bit. I want to do more streams though. So I need to figure out like where I can fit these at.
Yeah. Cool. Nice. And Shawn, what about you? Are you traveling again?
No, I've been very, very stable. Just actually, I just visited Stripe Singapore today, and it was really nice. Everyone's they basically only do lunches at the office, and then everyone works from home. So
Oh, that's pretty fun.
That's awesome. So they go and get together for lunch, and then they can go
Yeah.
back to their own place. That's really
yeah.
cool.
So basically, they have a restaurant.
A very expensive restaurant that doesn't serve food, I guess, or could serve food, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But the food was really good. So I like to see that because it's this kind of thing is kind of common in New York and San Francisco, but not so common in Singapore. So I do like to see that.
Nice.
I think the other thing that, maybe people have been seeing on my Twitter is that I've been complaining about JavaScript. Not really like React's fault. It's just more about build tooling. So I have a friend who's working on a side project, and he's a very experienced Go and Java developer. He's a senior staff engineer at Google and Twitter. And then he wanted to spin up a React dashboard, and he wanted to use an open API client that happened to use a Node built-in module, or the Node URL module. And because Create React App had upgraded to Webpack 5, it just gave him a really bad error. It was just like, I don't know what the hell this URL thing is. Here are 5 different ways to resolve it, none of which you can use because you're using Create React App. And he was like, I don't know what to do. So he wasn't able to fetch data in a basic React app. The first thing he tried to do after spinning up, he had this crash, and I was just like, man, I don't know if this is like a good thing, because this sort of thing is taken care of in other ecosystems, or just not a problem in other ecosystems. And I helped him fix it, but it was too many steps, and I wasn't proud of it, and I don't think it was a good use of anyone's time.
So do you think getting rid of Create React App, or actually like improving and evolving Create React App, is the solution?
Well, so one of the Create React App's problem is that it doesn't let you edit the Webpack profile, right? Like upgraded Webpack 5 was dropped Node. Like, we all understand why like each of these individual decisions matter. But imagine if you're not a full-time JavaScript person and you just want to get going. Imagine if you're trying to just use the recommended tools, the basic stack that's in the docs, and then you run into this kind of error, and like your day is ruined when you're just trying to be more productive, right? Like,
bad developer experience.
Exactly, it's developer experience. So like the error could be better. We could have an option to polyfill it because performance is not an issue. Like, there's all these other options available, but you needed someone like me to come in and do it for you, or you'd be completely screwed. So I don't think, essentially what my reflection is, I don't think we're doing a good job of serving the non-JS crowd and the non-developer crowd. Like, because I just don't think this is productive.
It's a funny one, because we saw the exact same thing with a brand new Nux app just the other day. We were just studying how the routing works, and it also would not launch. It had some error that you would know if you're a JavaScript developer, but if you were just a person who'd come from the language, you wouldn't recognize it. And I think it was to do with dependencies not being pinned down correctly or something. But in their own CLI's creation, a brand new bare skeleton app, and just wouldn't run. And as part of that discussion, Ben mentioned that actually he'd seen the same thing back in the day when we started a new super app. He ran it at a time when it had a similar issue, it had a dependency issue or whatever, and it wouldn't work. And it's funny because every single mainstream language probably has the same exact issue. And someone was reporting that Ember did the same to them the other day. So it's not any specific language or stack or anything else. It's across the board. We probably need to have a better job of having what you'd consider a stable, bare bones app or skeleton.
Right. So, I think our error messages need to be better. And then also I was just thinking about like, maybe if we had just a hard version. So, like you would understand if a library that was built for Python 3 was not compatible with Python 2. So I think basically what we need is JS 3 versus JS 2, right? Like there's this ecosystem of newer packages or updated packages that are compatible with like ES modules and like no node built-ins, like all the new standards that we come to expect. And those are not expected to be compatible with JS 2. So maybe we should do that, but I also don't know how to do it.
Would that be a warning? Would that be a warning thing, or would it be
it's like a hard stop? Everyone would signal, or everyone would be able to you'd be able to analyze a package whether it's compatible with JS 3 tools. And if you're using JS 3, like anything using Webpack 5 is JS 3, anything using Vite is JS 3. You cannot expect. So this is about messaging, right? This is about telling people, should you be able to expect to use this package with this other package? And it's really not that complicated. Like there's just a set of expectations that the more modern tools have that make them incompatible with the past. and we just need to make it easy to see.
I think it's a good idea. I think it would solve a lot of problems, but I don't think it would solve all the problems, because at least 2 of those scenarios weren't related to ES6 or non-ES6. They were different things, but it would certainly be a step in the right direction. My concern is people not fully understanding the standards and producing something that claims to be JS3 or whatever, but it's not actually JS3, because just because it has some of the kind of traits doesn't make it actually compatible. So you'd have to have almost like, an official meaning of what this meant, and somehow get people to adhere to that, maybe.
I mean, yeah, you could probably do that. Sounds like a lot of work, though. Like getting everyone on board, and like
it's almost like a security audit, isn't it? Because that happens, right? It scans the packages and says this has XYZ issue.
Yeah, maybe we should just do it. Like, make a repository and just have like approved packages.
It's
probably
just a
been
GitHub
done like
badge,
a million times.
It's a GitHub bot rather that goes around GitHub and scans packages and then gives them an award.
And then you maybe you try to convince the package managers that they should warn if you're installing like an old package in a project that's, I don't know. This is an impossible
That part's
thing.
easier. That part's easier because you do that in NPM, you do that in PNPM, you do that in Yarn, whatever else. You do it there. Reads this field or whatever and says it's valid or not. I just think people might end up fudging it.
Yeah.
Better error messages and warnings are definitely good, but I think we have lied to our listeners and we have derailed the conversation. 10 minutes in, we're going to get back to custom stores. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. That was the topic of the day. Yeah. All right. So, have you guys heard about stores?
No.
Now, you can buy all sorts of stuff in them. No, I'm just kidding. So stores are a concept in Svelte. It's kind of I guess you could call it a state handling solution, but a very bare bones one. You can put all sorts of fun stuff in them. You can implement, what's that one React thing
Redux.
that everyone uses? Yes, Redux. I was going to say Remix, but that's another thing.
Or MobX.
MobX, yeah. Or Easy Peasy is one I used.
Or what's that stories one? Like React something or other.
Redux Saga? No, I have no
that's
clue.
the one.
Yeah. Dunks and all the other things that go with Redux.
Yeah. So, generally stores are just a way for handling communication between components, or rather, I guess you share state between components is probably a better description, right?
A global state.
Yes. So we have a couple of built-in ones in Svelte. We have the writable, a readable. We have a derived one, and we also have a Spring one. Are there any other ones that I've missed? I think those are the ones. I should know this.
Is there a specific Spring one? I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, there is. So let's go through them. So a writable store is what you'd use to when you want a store that you can write to, so you can update it and whatnot. A readable one is you set the value once, and inside of the store you might run some logic to update it as well, but you can't update it from the outside, if that makes sense. And then we also have a derived one, which depends on other stores. And then we have is the Spring one called Tween? That's probably it, right? Or are those different? I don't know.
No, they're separate. So Spring basically lets you emulate Spring physics. And so, for example, whenever you want to reach to a certain value, you might overstep it for a bit, just like as a principle of animation. Yeah. And then Tweened, it lets you precisely go from A to B. Yep. So either you emulate the physics of like a weight and some kind of spring resistance, or you have a definite set time that you're trying to go for, something like that.
There's a really good Spring Svelte demo somewhere, isn't there?
There is.
With all animations. We should link that somewhere.
Absolutely. Yeah, so Spring is pretty nice. The tweened one is, like you said, Shawn, go between two values, smoothly between two values, I guess we should say, right? Yeah, those are the basic ones, and those are everything you need to build a Svelte app, I guess. But then there are also, I'm sure like most listeners know already what stores are and how to use them, like at least the basic ones. But there are also something called custom stores, or I guess stores that follow the store contract but have additional functionality. And they're pretty nice to work with. You can have specific, like, you can add functionality that works well with whatever you're trying to do. Maybe you have a calculator app and you want to add like the example in the Svelte tutorial, or the examples page is pretty much a count store where you have an increment and a decrement and a reset mode. So you can just call those methods, and then you increase the value by 1 or decrease it or reset it back to the original one.
So yeah, there's different ways of doing a custom store, isn't there? Because that one, for example, is augmenting it with new methods that are convenience.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite ways of using a custom store is to have a different storage backend. So stores only store within the browser. They store within the context of the application. But a store that maybe every change that's made it persists to local storage or session storage is really useful. And then, of course, there's another way you can use a store, which is the way I use it for the notifications component, which is to use it as a queue. So you put something in it, there's something subscribed on the other end, and every time it gets a value, it's pulled off the other end, operated upon, and then the store is reset to having no contents.
Yeah, stores are fun. And you mentioned like different storage, I guess, mechanisms where you wanted to store your values. You could have a custom store that saves to a database, or like calls an endpoint that saves to a database, I guess makes more sense. And like keeping in sync with a backend. But yeah, so I think I would say they're pretty underused generally for a lot of newcomers. You only see like people use the writable store, and they just put everything in there, which is a bit scary. I've seen some examples where like you have a writable store with like, it's an object with like 600 methods inside of it and like 500 attributes. It's
Wow.
very, very hard to reason about. Yeah. Do you generally like split up your stores into smaller ones, or do you just keep one giant? Maybe not giant, but
yeah, I tend to have. It depends what I'm doing. If I've got some config that kind of write once and read many, I'll use a writable store for the user data that they can change. I put inside a writable store. So I've got one readable, one writable, and then I end up with two stores, and I tend to put them in an object. And the reason I do that is because then I can pass that object to, if I need to set context or get context. Yeah, set context, and then I can get context later and get those two stores out.
That's pretty smart.
I think.
What about you?
One thing that struck me about talking about writing to APIs from a store, if you were setting this up from scratch and you have a page with a bunch of fields on it that writes to an object or modifies properties of an object, for example, a user's profile. If you've got that API inside the store writing all those changes to the database in real time, that's a really nice experience because you don't have to worry about sync at all. You change its properties, it updates it, it calls out to the API to update the database, but the changes are already within your application. If you refresh, that store gets repopulated with the latest data. And what it gives you is a way of real-time saving data, but then on top of that, having, for instance, a derived store that's watching that store that can do things such as trigger like a saving indicator or loading indicator or whatever else you want to do. And also, because it's a store, you can update values across your application, no matter who they belong to, where they were created, what files they're in, because it's a store and it's reactive.
Yeah, and that's probably not something we mentioned. Like there's built-in syntax to use the set method, I think it is, in Svelte. I think that's what happens under the hood, at least, when you use the sugar syntax. Yeah. I've dreamt of building like a super kind of complicated general fetch store thing that just does what you just said.
Yeah.
But it's pretty hard, and it's like most applications are different, and it's hard to build a generic solution because you
I'm going to disagree. I don't think it's hard. I think actually it's really easy. I think the hard bit is making sure your APIs are good enough for that to happen.
Right.
I know mine aren't, right? they're just not. They're not resourceful enough. They're not truly REST. And I think that you really need that. If you've got that sort of very clear, predictable, and consistent API, writing a store that's generic, that just knows this is it, this is the name of the entity, whatever, these are the fields that are within it, just keep them in sync. I think that would be really easy.
Yeah. So I guess the hard part is making it work for all of the different APIs that exist, right?
Sure.
Because the data has to look in a certain way, right?
Wasn't this kind of the topic of the Svelte Summit talk Scott Beal did on tackle async behavior with Svelte Stores?
Oh, I haven't rewatched that yet. I should go watch that.
That's
again.
a good. We should link that in there.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think one example of this done well actually is I think it's Active Record in Ruby. I ended up talking about it yesterday for some reason, but that does a pretty good job of abstracting over an API so that you're just keeping some object up to date, and the whole CRUD side of things is done for you.
Yeah, it's a nice experience.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So how do you make a custom store? Like what's the bare minimum custom store? It's just an object, right? That follows the store contract. And that means it should have a subscribe method. And I think that's it, right?
Well, yeah, there's three methods on stores, right? The set, update, and subscribe, I think. That's almost the entire
That's the
contract.
writable one.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I think you actually only need the subscribe method, and it needs to return an unsubscribed one as well. But yeah, so the way you make a custom store is basically you return an object that has those methods, pretty much, or the subscribe one and whatever else you want on it.
Yeah,
right.
The way that I've done it most simply is by having a regular JavaScript class. Within that class's constructor, you create a store. It's a regular Svelte store, and you destructure the functions you want off it, and then return them. And that's basically it.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. So
I just realized something. I just realized that there are no docs for the custom store on the main docs. Why is that?
Yeah, I agree.
That's weird. I know there's an example with a custom store. So maybe
there's an example. Yeah, there's a tutorial example. The docs do mention about custom stores, but they describe it in a way as you just do this contract, but no one really understands what that means. It's simpler than it's made to sound.
It's definitely. I think that should probably be expanded on in some way.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense. Yeah, but I mean, so we mentioned like stores, and they're generally used for application-wide state, right? To store maybe a configuration file that you need in multiple places, or maybe like the regular example is the cart store that you add items to in an e-commerce application.
Yeah, the stores are global state, so they are across the entire application.
Yeah, but there's also another way of using stores, which is to create like a store generator, a store factory, I guess you'd call it, where instead of using it to share a state, you just extract logic from your components and put it in a store, and then you just use the store instead. So that way you can reuse the logic in different places, and you can have your components look a bit nicer. So I've got a couple of different examples of these. So I've got like a toggle store where that's a super simple custom store. It just toggles between on and off, or true false, I guess. But it's a nice way of having a toggle. probably not something you'd do in a real application, but there are other examples. You could make a fetch store that handles different states of fetch for you. And so you could have a data property, you could have a status property, and an error property, I guess. And instead of having to rewrite the fetch for a bunch of different places, you just write this once as a store, and then you import it into your component and use it there. I think this is a pretty underused way of using stores. I'd like to see more.
They're
of
very
these.
flexible.
Yeah,
I think the name store leads you down a path of storing data. That's kind of what I think, but they're much more than that, and it's almost as if you could give them multiple aliases. I said, we use one as a queue, and it's great. It's a great queue because you just you can shove multiple things into it. You just add a push method, and then when it's all freed up and ready to render, it pulls off what it needs to and executes on them. It's super useful.
For sure. Like, I guess the way that we're talking about using them now, so as one-off state or logic extraction tools, is kind of like how you would make custom stores and custom hooks in React, kind of, but not really. But yeah, it's pretty neat. You can combine it with actions as well. The best feature of Svelte. Yeah.
I feel like I need to plug some libraries. So if you're, for example, if you're using stores for fetching data, you might want to check out some work that other people have done. And Svelte Query seems like the most advanced one of those that I've come across. And it's just got a whole bunch of APIs that you might find useful and features.
Yeah, it's a really nice, like, there are a lot of stores out there, and they're all very good. Well, probably not all of them, but a lot of them.
This orbit circle on their homepage is incredible.
Oh,
on the
which one?
Svelte Query homepage, it's like circles of people that use it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the sponsors one there?
Yeah. Sorry,
yeah.
sponsors one.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's
uses
cool.
it?
Not, I guess sponsors, not uses it. I said the wrong thing.
That's a lot of sponsors for this.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
What? Really?
Okay, hang on. No, this is
this is for Tanner.
React. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I see. So this is for the guy that made it. All right. Okay, that makes sense. Because that almost looks like more sponsors than Svelte.
Yeah.
Probably not. Speaking of the Svelte sponsors or the Open Collective, what's going on there, Antony? This is a bit of a tangent.
That's okay. The Open Collective. What is going on there? What is going on there?
Yeah, nobody knows.
What is going on there?
It's just a bunch of money. Need to do something with it.
Well, I know, but it's hard to know exactly what to do with it. It's hard to
hard to spend
you pick
money.
something, you allocate a bunch of funding to it, then the people who didn't want that thing are like, well, what about my thing? And it's difficult to find a good way, but there's definitely some ideas coming to fruition that will help us allocate funds to the right place. I think one specific one that came up recently is a discussion around providing a bounty for fixing certain bugs or picking a new feature that's wanted and then working on it. The issue with that is that people are trying to claim retrospectively, and that's not really how it works. We have to kind of agree a price up front as if it was like a contract work or something. But that's certainly something we're interested in, especially since given the popularity of Svelte now and the things people actually want to build with it. There's a lot of issues that we don't necessarily have time to work on, but if someone wanted to work on it, they could come forward and provide a good outlay of how they want to do it, then we could discuss effectively paying them to do it. So there's definitely ideas afoot. We just haven't. There's nothing has happened just yet.
Yep, makes sense. All right, cool. Back to stores. So Brittney, you have a list here. What's this?
Oh, yeah. I linked the tackle async behavior with Svelte Stores because I didn't know where else to put it. And then I have one on persisting a Svelte store with local storage. I did it a couple of years ago at Svelte Summit, maybe in 2020, like at the fall one where it was like just posted on YouTube. So might be a little outdated, but it's just persisting the store to local storage so you can have some data in local storage. So it's not too complicated.
Yeah, that's a nice feature. I like Jacob's store that he made. It's also like a local storage thing, and works with SvelteKit as well, which is pretty neat. So I guess like if you're making a store that needs local storage, you'd need to handle that case, and if you're using SvelteKit, right, since it runs both on the server and the client.
That is a good shout out. Yeah. I was wondering with the fetch one too, how that works with endpoints, and if you're using it like in the load function, like how does that work?
Yeah. Well, I guess it should work, right? Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I should try. All right. And Shawn, you have a bunch of stores here.
Yeah, so I call this project the Everything Store, just my own list of stores that I would like in the future. It's not an active project, so don't get too excited. But so the first two stores are, I think, something in the line of what Antony was saying. Like the word store implies that you're storing data, but actually you could just use it as a way to subscribe to things and set up subscriptions to things. So what if you could subscribe to your breakpoints or your window with changing, and being able to set breakpoints and derive state off of that. So the breakpoint store is really good, and then more generally, anything in the media query could be used as a store. So for example, dark mode or orientation, landscape versus portrait, anything like that, and you'd be able to respond to that inside of Svelte. So just having pre-baked stores for that makes it really easy to start making your app a bit more responsive in the JavaScript side of things, not just CSS. If that's something that you need. In practice, I don't use it often, but I think when I do, I always find out that I have to go look up the MDN I can just import a store instead.
Yeah, that's a pretty good use case.
Yeah. And then another one that I use on my personal site, but I haven't published a store for yet, is the route query param store. Basically, whenever, for example, you're typing in a search in the inbox, or you're filling out like a filter, it should basically be persisted to the URL with the query params. And when you copy that and you paste that in a new browser to or you send that to a friend, that should just rehydrate into a state on the new site as well. So I think all that can be wrapped in a store and subscribed to and written to, and it should be easier. So I hope that becomes more of a pattern.
That sounds actually super useful. And like a pretty nice user experience as well. Like, I wonder if you could have it just like somehow get all of the values from the page and like do it all automatically. Because I assume you have to kind of do it manually at the moment.
Yeah, you should do it manually because like not all the values should be serialized. It would make for a very ugly URL. But just the big ones that you want to filter on or search for. Put that in the URL, and then when people send that around, it would just naturally hydrate without you doing any extra work. Like the store would do all the work.
Yep, that makes sense.
So, yeah. Again, this is thinking about stores as a way to sync things rather than a way to store things. There's also XState store. XState is just a state machine library or state charts library, and being able to do state transitions across the app. I think there's a very natural sympathy there. Is there already a state machine store out there? I'm pretty sure that someone's built one already.
So there was a guy that made one at Svelte Summit, I think last Svelte Summit.
Yeah, let's link that talk.
Maybe that was it might have been just like it was a state machine library, but I think it had stores in it.
There's XState Svelte. It's at XState/Svelte.
Yeah, so the one I'm talking about is, let's see here, what is it called? It is called, I'm scrubbing the YouTube video here, Svelte FSM. So it's a finite state machine.
Cool.
I'm gonna link it in the
let's help users find that and evaluate it. But I think these These are all just super useful. I have one last one, which is, what if your store could survive browser refresh? So in other words, it's stored to not just maybe local storage, maybe IndexedDB. So we talked about that already. And what if it could survive? What if you could be synced to a database in the cloud? So, and what if it could work offline, and then when you went online, it syncs back? So essentially, like, there's a lot of engineering that you could sync into this to make a full offline sync engine, including showing optimistic updates or the status of something that should be synced but was entered in while offline. I'm probably also going to try to write a Supabase store, because that's just my backend of choice now.
Yeah, nice. Sounds like a fun store.
Yeah, and quite a useful one, actually. I've not used Supabase, but certainly having a store interface to it would solve me having to actually learn it.
You don't need anything other than Cloudflare nowadays. They have everything. They have SQL. They have.
Well, everything's in beta, so you have to
yeah, that's true. YOLO.
Well, so one thing I do think that we do need either the local storage store or the optimistic sync store, because so I spun up a new SvelteKit app recently, and the SvelteKit app has a to-do program on one of the default pages. It's very slow because it waits and simulates a full API request before updating the sync every time you click a button or do an action.
I think it actually does an API request and saves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was very slow. Like, no real app will do that. You would have to do like, imagine having to wait like a second after every click for the UI to update. It's just very slow, and I don't think it shows off Svelte in a good light. So I think we should have this store.
I think it's caused some confusion too, because if you deploy it, it breaks, right?
I didn't even know
does?
that. Yeah, we need to figure that out.
Yeah, seems like a problem. Yeah. All right. Anything else about stores that we've missed?
No.
All the listeners are now store experts. That's great. Don't even have to try writing one. They're just experts now. That's good. All right. I guess we move on to Unpopular Opinions. And we're going to hear from Antony, of course.
Yeah, okay. I'll just pull up my unpopular opinion, because I have so many. I have to just, listen to them and make sure I'm controversial enough. Yes. So this relates to a tweet that I saw floating around somewhere, probably on Twitter, given past experience. It said something along the lines of, and it was by one of these people who owns, a startup of some sort, and it was along the lines of, basically, don't spend your time in a startup building tests, build features. It's the only way. It was very dogmatic. It was just like, this is the only way to do a startup. Don't write any tests, just gung ho the whole thing. And I'm like, well, no, I don't think that's reasonable. I believe that everything needs tests. Now, granted, there are things that you definitely need to test, and there are things that you probably should test, but you could probably skip them. There were a lot of replies on this tweet about, if you're writing 1,000 tests, you're not delivering, blah, blah, blah. If you're a perfectionist and you need to run these tests, you're going to fall behind. Tests are going to save you in the longer run. If you expect your startups to succeed, you're going to thank yourself for writing tests in the first 6 months, in the first 12 months, rather than just like shipping a prototype, it's succeeding, then you panic trying to rewrite it or trying to do something else. That's when you're going to slow down. You're still losing your competitive advantage, whether you lose it at the start or whether you impact it. Not lose it, because writing tests doesn't really slow you down if you're doing it well. But if it impacts you at the start, it's equally going to impact you after a year or after 2 years or whenever it hits you and you've got no tests and your site starts to get unreliable and your product stops working for customers that are paying you money. In my experience, it's been much worse. So I believe that all startups need tests. It's just maybe being careful about what you test, where you focus your testing, and how you write those tests.
Controversial in some circles.
Sorry, what are you saying?
What if you hate writing tests?
Then you need more practice. Because I'll tell you what. People can hate writing tests, but I tell you what I hate, and that's debugging things in production, because that's actually hateful. The site going down at 3 a.m, That's hateful. Writing tests is a pleasure.
Comparatively.
It's a pleasure anyway for me, but yeah, especially compared to that, it's definitely a pleasure.
It sounds like you like seeing those green check marks.
I do. I like seeing the
That
green
is
check marks.
satisfying.
I like
It
having
is.
confidence that my software goes out with any issues.
Yeah.
That I haven't introduced any issues. It's a great feeling.
All right. I have an unpopular opinion. I don't know if it's unpopular, but here goes. So I'm currently working on a pre-rendered SvelteKit app with a separate backend. And it's not fun. I want to just use the endpoints. Let me use the endpoints, but I can't for reasons.
Okay.
So
I was like, what are the reasons?
No, that's the reason. I can't use them. I'm not allowed to. But it has to do with like content delivery, CDN stuff. They want the application to be available all over the place, but I can't use like Cloudflare or Vercel or anything. It has to, like, the backend has to live on AWS, which is, yeah. You probably heard my rant last week about that.
So basically,
But yeah.
they want to have their cake. They want to eat their cake, but they don't want to have their cake.
Right. Well, I think it's because they have all of their other stuff in AWS, right?
Yeah,
It makes sense for them.
Yeah, AWS's dashboard is not great, but aren't like Netlify built on AWS? So
Everything
isn't
is built on AWS. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's not inside of the
it has to be
AWS
inside.
billing thing, right? Yeah. I don't think it's anything like other than that. It's just simplifies for I don't know, if they want to spin up more database servers or whatever it is that they might want.
You have to assume these companies have a bunch of infrastructure. They have a bunch of scripts that build infrastructure, and they have a bunch of roles, IAM permissions. Everything's managed in one place, and if you go then try and divert it somewhere else, then obviously that's a huge issue for them because they're managing two platforms instead of one. It's unfortunate, and it should be easier than that. And I think that there's definitely the ability for somebody to say, it's okay to have multiple platforms. Let's do the thing that makes the most sense for what we're building. But I can also understand that's in itself controversial. So.
Yeah, this is one of the problems with the Jamstack, in a sense, is that there's so many best-in-class products and you have your stuff put so across so many different things that it's hard to get all of that into one place. And I think companies like Uniform and Builder and those companies are trying to kind of bring those pieces together, but not quite there yet.
Yeah. Well, so that's my rant. Anyone else have any rants or opinions? No?
I think Shawn already did his in the beginning.
Right. The React one. Or sorry, not the React one. The bad user experience for non-JS people.
Yeah.
Coming to JS. All right. Picks? Shawn?
I'll go first. Stocks are on sale.
On sale. I love, like in quotes, on sale. It is bad out there.
It's bad out there. When there's blood on the streets, that's when you should be trying to buy rather than when everyone is buying. So obviously we're heading into a recession, people getting laid off at the same time as Amazon and Microsoft are raising the salaries for software engineers. It's just a very confusing time. But I think for those people who may not have invested too much in the market and feel like they've missed out, I think actually this is the time to start making a mental list of what you're trying to invest in, and then not trying to time the bottom. Just investing in over a very dollar cost averaging over a long time. And that's something I've been talking about with my family and some friends as well.
I actually completely agree with that. Yeah, it is a very good time to get into the market if you have not previously, as long as it doesn't go down more.
It's going to go down more, but the point is, like, you're never going to, like, wake up at the bottom and just go like all in on that one day.
Yeah.
So don't even try.
Dollar cost average, like you said.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Anyone else
Brittney?
before I go? Okay.
Go for
Yeah. So I didn't have any Siren streams scheduled, and then I got in touch with Prismic, and I'm very excited to do slicing up your Svelte site with Prismic. So Prismic does these slices. That's a little different than some of the other content management systems that are out there. So I'm excited to do that on Friday. And then the most exciting one next Friday with Danny Sandoval about the story behind the unofficial Svelte newsletter. I am so excited to hear like all the inside details on this.
Yeah. So the unofficial official one, right? Because
The
that's the one that,
unofficial official.
yeah. All right. Cool. Antony, do you have one?
Yeah, my pick is we've just bought a Muskmobile.
A what?
You know, a Muskmobile.
Muskmobile.
What the
A
hell
car
What is
hand built by Elon
Tesla.
Musk.
You got a Tesla.
Oh.
Yes, Tesla. We haven't got it yet. It's coming, but I'm going to pick it when it arrives. So
Muskmobile.
this is a pre-pick.
I had never
Yeah.
heard it called a Muskmobile.
Yeah, that's a new one. So I guess you can't pick it when you actually get it then. Just so you know. You can only pick something once.
Okay, well, then I'm going to pick the real name of it.
Fair enough. All right. Yeah, I don't have a pick. So I'm going to pick ice cream.
Your pick is your meetup you're going to in a
Yeah,
minute, right?
that is true. But that's like, people are going to miss that because
I know.
yeah. So yeah, go to meetups. Meetups. That's a good pick, right? Meetups are
And then
fun.
we're gonna
Conferences
schedule-
are fun.
A stream with Kev to come and talk about Svelte Cubed.
Yes, because I'm doing a presentation on Svelte Cubed. We'll see how it goes. I'm not an expert in Svelte Cubed, and the documentation is what you would call
Sparse.
pretty. Yes. So we'll see how that goes. And yeah, I think that's it. Anything else before we sign off?
No.
No.
think
All
so.
right. Cool.
Happy solding.
Thanks for listening, everyone. And we'll be back next week with another episode. Woo. Bye.
Bye.
Later.